Hello all and welcome to your next week. Hope you all had a great break. Now we're going to talk today about solving with what is called the Pythagorean Theorem. Pythagorean Theorem. And one thing you'll notice in the homework is that you are definitely going to want a calculator for this. Some of the answers are going to definitely be possible without a calculator, but you are, for the most part, going to want one, and that will help you a lot with solving the homework problems. So, if you don't have a calculator, you can obviously use one on a device or a phone, but make sure that it has a square root button, which we will get to. So, let's start by, for some of you, this will be a review of the Pythagorean Theorem. For some of you, this will be brand new. Now, the Pythagorean Theorem is about right triangles. So, we want to start with a right triangle like we see below. So again, this doesn't work if it doesn't have this angle right here. If I label them A, B, and C, and these are called the legs, A and B are the legs. C is what's called the hypotenuse. This is definitely one of those vocabulary words that you want to have written down and spelled correctly the first time. The hypotenuse is the longest side, and it will always be across from the right angle. That's how you can tell it's the hypotenuse. It's the longest side, and the Pythagorean theorem says a squared plus b squared, so the two legs, squared equals c squared. And that's why, again, it's really important that you are identifying c as the longest one. So, how are we going to use the Pythagorean theorem? Well, here we have find the missing side length, and you're going to notice we've got two of these. One thing that's really important about the Pythagorean theorem is you always want to start by figuring out which side is the hypotenuse. So if I'm looking at these two examples, that's the first thing I'm going to do here. For number one, I'm going to go out from the right angle, and that side that it hits is C. So C is our unknown in this case. Then that means that these I can call A, and this I'll call B. Which one you assign A and B doesn't really matter. C is the one that is different. And then I'm going to plug it into my Pythagorean theorem. So A squared would be 30 squared plus 40 squared for B is equal to C squared. Now we can go through our algebra and arithmetic. 30 squared is 900. 40 squared is 1600, c squared. 900 plus 1600 is 2500 is equal to c squared. And this is where it's nice to have a calculator and why it needs to have a square root. When we get rid of the square, so that we can get c by itself, the square root and the square cancel out. So c is equal to the positive square root of 2500, and we know it's positive because remember square roots can come in positive and negative, is when we're talking about the length of something that exists, positive is the only type of number that makes sense. Now here you might be able to logically conclude, since the square root of 25 is 5 and the square root of 100 is 10, that this would be 50. Or you can use your calculator, whichever one you prefer. And don't forget the units. Here we had feet and feet, which means that our answer C is 50 feet long. Now here's why it's so important to identify that as C first. If I look at number 2, find the missing side, X is not the hypotenuse. If I go out from the right angle, which is right here, you'll notice that 20 in this case is C. And that means that our A and B, and again, it doesn't matter which one you assign to which, because we're adding them, are going to be X and 16. So when we set up our equation, we should have X squared plus 16 squared is equal to 20 squared. So it's really important that you're solving, you know whether you're solving for a leg or whether you're solving for a hypotenuse. Again, a helpful place to have a calculator. You can do 16 squared by hand, absolutely, but I'm letting you use a calculator here. Just make sure you're showing the work, just like I am here. 16 squared is 256 is equal to 400. So you'll notice I'm not typing in and showing the work of this calculation, but I'm still showing the work for each step as I go. Now, the next thing I would do is subtract 256 from both sides. Again, if we have a calculator, I'm not going to do that by hand. I'm going to type that in, but I'm going to write my answer down so that I'm still showing all my work. Then x squared is equal to 144. This is hopefully one where you don't need a calculator and you can just say, oh, well, x is equal to 12. Since there are no units in the problem, x equals 12 is a perfectly acceptable final answer. You also might have word problems for the Pythagorean theorem, and that means you'll probably want to draw in the triangle yourself. So here it says the foot of a 6-meter ladder is 2.5 meters away from the base of a wall. So I'm going to start by drawing a wall and a ladder leaning against it. If you've never seen a ladder before, you live an interesting life. But we've got this basic ladder here. And what we know about this is that it's 6 meters long, the ladder, and it's 2.5 meters away from the edge of the house. How high up the wall does the ladder reach? So this is a Pythagorean theorem problem. We have our right angle here. So the first thing we're going to do to find that height is figure out, okay, well, 6 is our C. And so the other two are our legs. And in my problem, I'm going to say h squared plus 2.5 squared is equal to 6 squared. Again, using my calculator, I am going to say h squared is then equal to, h squared plus 6.25 is equal to 36. I will then do the subtraction on my calculator, but again, showing all my work, so I get 29.75. Here, there is not a nice, easy answer when I take the square root of both sides. I get h by myself, but I don't know what the square root of that is, and I don't expect you to. And when you type it in, you're going to get a long decimal in your calculator. That's fine. It says round to the nearest tenth. So the tenth is this first decimal place. When you're doing homework that requires rounding, please don't round until the last step. So don't round here, round only at the end. So I'm still going to type in the square root of 29.75, and then you end up with 5.45435, so on, so on, so on. Since we're only rounding to the 10th spot, we just look at the next number to figure out if we go up or down. Since it's 5, that means that we round the next digit up. So the final answer is 5.5, and the unit in this problem is meters. Please let me know if you are stuck on anything or if you have any questions. If you don't have access to a calculator with a square root button, most phones will, but you have to turn it on its side. So it's not there when you're holding it upright, sort of like you normally would, but if you turn it so that it's horizontal, the calculator will have more buttons that it will make available for you. Hopefully that helps. If you're stuck on anything, please set up a meeting on Zoom, put something in the comments, or send me an email.